Welcome everyone to OnPodcast, the On Microsoft podcast, where we talk about Microsoft stuff on a podcast. I'm your host today, Kareem Anderson, and I'm joined by.
David Allen, the fun one on a warm Friday afternoon. Hope everybody's doing well.
Yeah, I believe that the rest of the U.S. is catching up on good weather. We are coming out of that cold front, so people are creeping out of their homes with fewer layers than they did last week. So we want you all to go out and enjoy the weather if you can. For those of you who can't, you're stuck in here with us, so maybe we can brighten up your day that way. We have a lot to talk about. We are going to be covering stuff about Loop, which is Microsoft's new version of Notion. We're going to be talking about a snipping tool that's leaking out tons of information if you post anything online, so something to be aware about. We're also going to be talking about the CMA tacitly giving its approval of the Activision deal. We also have some information about Microsoft Creator. So if we're going to keep the AI discussion going, we're even going to start off our podcast with an AI discussion because Google has decided to open up in limited preview its Bard. So that's our open discussion. Let's get into it. Earlier this week, uh, Bard, I believe Google started rolling out Bard. It came in the news, a flurry of news of other AI resources and platforms being kind of made available. Being image creator, as we mentioned, Adobe has their own version called Adobe Firefly, which is in beta. I believe the difference between Dolly, uh, being creator, which is powered by Dolly, and Midjourney is that Adobe uses licensed images. So, I mean, theoretically speaking, you are paying some artist just in the front and the back end. But anyway, with all that news being said, Google snuck in its limited preview for its own Bard Chat GPT-esque thing. It's kind of hard to call it Chat GPT because they use LLM, I believe, is what's powering theirs. They also created Chat GPT, so we'll just keep all these things in as footnotes as we go about this discussion. Um, the response to its early preview in the first couple of days is that people were just left whelmed. There are a lot of big shoulder shrugs and meh. You, my friend, got a chance to access it. You were just talking to me a second off mic about how you've been playing around with it. Give the listeners your initial review of it.
Like we were talking about off camera or off microphone here. I don't want to knock it because, like you said, Google is building their own thing, whereas as we were talking about, Microsoft has been able to lease technology for what they currently have with Bing Chat. So Bard is definitely in the infancy stage by far. You cannot ask it very many technical questions yet. I just got my invite yesterday afternoon, so I've not had a whole lot of time to sit down and play with it. But things like, for example, if you run a company and you wanted to say, I'm building a website about a cleaning company, can you write me an about page about a successful cleaning company? Can you write me a services page about a successful cleaning company? Basic everyday questions it does well. But now, what it will do is be careful how you use that information because it does not highlight it takes company names out. So if you use your company name and the question that you ask it, when it gives you the information, it's going to bracket out company name. So don't copy and paste that information, folks. And somebody see it and go, "Well, why is company name in brackets here?" And then you've got egg on your face if you're using a presentation. So keep that in mind that when you're using Bard to read what it's giving you a context. It's more contextual, and you have to fill in the blanks a little bit. Is what I'm finding it to be.
Yeah, a couple details about the difference between the two. If you're kind of wondering what one you want to kind of play around with, aside from being actually able to use it, which I believe it's again in limited preview in the US and UK only so far, is that Google's Bard goes out of its way to flower its responses with several notions that this is experimental, this is collaborative, this is
Yes.
not a search engine, this is not meant to replace a search engine. These are, at least whatever your query is, the responses are in its experimental phase, is what it says. So, I mean, it's trying to differentiate itself between Bing Chat, which kind of is an extension of its search, so to speak, because it does offer footnotes and links, and it's set above, visually speaking, UI speaking, set above the Bing search. Google Bard is its wholly different thing. It's imagine the Bing Chat, but without the Google page attached to it. You can launch into a Google search. They have a Google It button at the very bottom, but other than that, there's no other way to kind of tie the two together. I mean, it even opens up its own separate instance of a tab. So if you're looking to have an all-in-one solution, it makes clear that these two things are kind of different.
Yeah, you that I will add to that. You can definitely tell there is a separation. Not only do they present it, like you said, as a beta product, but I think as people get their invites, it feels like a beta product. I'm gonna have to call it what it is, even though we're Microsoft, enthusiasts doing a Microsoft podcast. It feels like a beta product, and we're just gonna have to wait to see what
Hey,
Google's gonna do
until
with it.
about, what was it, 5 to 6 years ago, Gmail has been a beta product. So beta products can be useful and they can be very good. This
That's
one so
true.
far, is it's finding its legs. It's got sea legs right now. I did pull it into this discussion, an example, because I haven't had a chance to access it just yet. But plenty of people did. Some people at the New York Times did. Some other publications did. And one of the examples, just to kind of show you the difference between the two, was that someone asked it, how do modern day carbon dioxide levels compare to the last ice age? And the Google Bard response is very eloquent. It says during the last ice age, carbon dioxide levels were about 180 parts per million ppm for short. Today, carbon dioxide levels are about 410 ppm. This increase is due to human activities such as burning fossil fuels, deforestation, and cement production. So, and then it goes on to list a bunch of other things, some possible reasons as to why this has been an increase. It talks about humans interaction increasing these levels. It also explains that there are ways to get around this by investing in renewable energy. The Bing response was, according to the NSA, and it leaves a footnote, since the beginning of the industrial times in the 18th century, human activities have raised atmospheric CO2 by 50%, meaning the amount of CO2 is now 150% of its value in 1750. This is greater than what naturally happens at the end of the last ice age 200,000 years ago. So modern day carbon dioxide levels are much higher than during the last ice age. Another footnote. I hope this helps. Let me know if you have any questions. And then at the very bottom, it says to learn more. It also has links to climatenasa.gov, theconversation.gov, Scientific America, plus three more. Now, the difference between, and it's kind of hard to show this in an audio podcast, is that in the Google version, there are no links, there are no footnotes. The only other thing that you have is a thumbs up, thumbs down. You have a refresh icon, which will give you access to the other three prompts that it had, and a Google It button. In the Microsoft one, there are the footnotes. There are several links out. Then there's prompts for the discussion, which asks what are some effects of global warming? What can we do to reduce carbon emissions? Basically, what Google does is it offers a very eloquent response, but it also offers some opinions. And you can see where this could kind of be a downside for someone who's looking for more of a scientific answer than an opinionated one. Not saying one's better than the other. It's just the difference between the two and the polish that we're talking about as far as what being a licensed version of ChatGPT is offering and what Google's homebrew version is.
And I think that's something people have to remember. Don't use any of these GPT bots, these chat bots, or whatever, Bard or whatever. Remember what Google was like in its infancy. Google had to learn, Google had to adapt, Google had to educate to become the power that it is, and Bing the same way. I know there's always been a drop off between what people think Bing is and its quality of search versus Google and its quality of search. But we've got to remember, we've got to give these things time. And as you've seen with Kareem and I here on the podcast reporting this every week, the AI information goes across our desk, and we're going to talk about it more even more here in a minute. The AI information goes across our desk almost faster than we can keep up. This stuff is changing from week to week, so you've got to give it time. Don't always take the results as being correct. Kind of do your own fact checking, if you will.
Yeah, this is all stuff for people who have trouble brainstorming, who may have a bit of ADHD and things like that. This helps you kind of hone some of that stuff in so that you can run with it from there. We will not be bashing Bard anymore. Hopefully, this didn't sound like we were. We were just kind of letting people who are Microsoft fans know what the competition is out there and what it's like so far. Now we'll move on to our headlines. And what do you got for us in our first one?
I'm going to jump back in the Microsoft world. I'm going to make a little joke here. Things got a little loopy this week, and Microsoft, yep, had to do something there. Microsoft Loop is available in public preview, and I know Kareem and I have started moving some of our podcast notes over to Microsoft Loop, and it's an interesting product, guys. If you're familiar with Notion. Notion has kind of been looked at as a OneNote competitor, but if you're familiar with Notion, that's kind of what you're looking at here. You're going to notice a lot of similarities, and looking at social media, some people like that, some people don't. You'll notice some of your commands are the same. Like I said, you'll notice the look and feel is the same, but here's the catch. Loop brings in the whole Microsoft 365 ecosystem, or at least that's the intention. It's not all there yet. For example, you can't just pull something in from OneDrive like you would like to. You have the Copilot integration, which is the AI part of it. That's coming along, and you can integrate it very well with Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Word and move things over that way. You can make your Loop components, and you can share just those components with folks that you want to. If you've got a whole document there and you say, look, I want to make this paragraph a Loop component, and I want to share this Loop component with Kareem, and the only thing I want him to see in this document is the Loop component, you can do that. Now, what you have to have is a Microsoft 365 account. MSA accounts, the consumer accounts can't be used yet, and it is available in a public preview, so they're still working on it, and there is an Android and an iOS app available. I'm a fan of it. Like I mentioned on last week's podcast, I'm an integration guy. I have been waiting for a long time to see the one product that takes Microsoft 365 and pulls it into one. So I'm really hoping that Microsoft is really polishing this, and I'm hoping businesses and consumers get behind it, because 365 has always been single products. You've got Excel, Word, Outlook, and the list goes on, and they work together. This seems to be the one thing that pulls it all together in one product and has a lot of potential.
Yeah, agreed. For those of you who aren't familiar with Notion, just think of this as a stripped down version, or like an Irish twin version of OneNote. They do different things. They have different intentions. I know that again we've moved some of our stuff, our podcasting stuff, over from OneNote, which was again for organization and note taking. What Loop does, and again, don't think it's going to replace OneNote, because OneNote is supposed to be coming out with this new version of itself. That's strictly for pin-enabled note taking and a bunch of other, granular stuff. This is more of a hybrid of, I suppose, OneNote and other task management software, stuff like Bright and Monday, stuff like that. So that it offers a lot more of that than OneNote does. So not to be confused with OneNote, but it can be a OneNote replacement for those of you who are OneNote fans and just want to use one app to kind of do everything, or for people who want to just keep their stuff note-based. Because again, I know, like we mentioned off mic, that I use sticky notes a ton. And on the mobile app, I can access my sticky notes there and create more elaborate OneNote documents based on that. This doesn't have that, doesn't do it just yet. But what its benefit is like, if I need to add stuff from one of my notes into Excel, I can do that, and vice versa. That's the promise of Loop. So we're gonna keep an eye on it. For those of you who can get access to it, go and download the app, start testing it out. It's very bare bones. So when you compare it to Notion, just realize that Notion, this is basically Bard in reverse. Notion had the head start. Microsoft tried to create its thing from scratch, kind of like they did with Teams or Slack. So it's going to take some time for it to get all of the things that Microsoft promised, first of all, and all the things that fans and users want. So again, we're keeping an eye on it. Have fun with it. Our next headline is going to be talking about Snipping Tool and how you guys should all stop sharing cropped images because you're just throwing information out there. Yeah, it's reported that Microsoft's Snipping Tool was hit with a privacy flaw that allowed hackers to retrieve sensitive data out of cropped out screenshots without the user's knowledge. The flaw is quite similar to Acropolis is what they call it, which has recently affected Google Pixel screenshot tools. So those of you who were taking pictures with Google Photos or putting on Google Photos or using an Android phone, this is apparently a similar thing. As it happens when you're editing a screenshot you've taken using the tool and overwrite the original image by saving the newly edited image under the same name as the original file, the Snipping Tool apparently doesn't get rid of the image's original information from the file. In layman's terms, basically when you take an image and you don't change the name from screenshot, which I don't often, and then you crop it and then you post it somewhere, a hacker can actually take that posted image and pull out the rest of the information, basically unveil whatever you crop. So if you were taking a shot of, I don't know, bank statement or something like that for an invoice and you sent it to somebody, if someone was very nefarious, they can pull the rest of the image out, get your routing number, account number, other bank information, stuff like that. So that's what happened earlier this week. For those of you who are now freaked out and ran away from the podcast looking for all your screenshots, just know that Microsoft did issue a fix, but it's only in the Canary Insider version right now. We don't know when it'll be pushed out to everyone just yet, but they are working on it. I suppose by next week, we should probably have that fix out for everyone. So just be aware of your sniffing tool.
I hate to see that. When we had the introduction of the Snipping Tool several podcasts ago, we were two folks that was happy to see it. I'm glad to know that Microsoft has totally jumped on top of that. Now, I do use a Snipping Tool, but I do change my file names. So
again, that's key.
Make sure, folks, like Kareem said, that's key. If you're not able to get to the Canary version in the Windows Insiders program, make sure when you take that snippet, change the file name, folks. Keep your stuff safe.
My little trick is I just add .1 to anything that I've adjusted, and that's how, if you get it, it'll say screenshot .1, and you're all set. What's our next headline?
I'm going to jump around a little bit. I kind of put a little entertainment in here. Microsoft is back talking about the Xbox mobile app store that we heard about early on in this whole Activision merger thing. They're actually saying, hey, we're going to come out in 2024 and we're going to do this with an asterisk. I don't think they're going to do it if this Activision merger thing does not go through, but they are saying right now, assuming the Activision Blizzard deal goes through, they intend to launch a mobile gaming store in 2024. It's not been a secret. Like I said, we have talked about it here on the podcast quite a bit. And per the EU Digital Markets Act, Apple and Google will be required to open their store and make their stores more universal. So I think Microsoft and Xbox is kind of just jumping in here and saying, look, we're going to beat everybody to the punch. How about we stop putting these barriers up and we go ahead and say, look, we're going to have a gaming store and everybody pack your luggage, bring your titles. Let's have one place that gamers can go. Now, the one thing that pops into my mind is some of these game developers and some of these stores have had some interesting relationships and some interesting court battles over the last couple of years. We had, what was it, Epic and Apple? Wasn't there somebody that went after Google
Epic
as
went after Google
well?
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, Epic did go after Google. I was thinking there was somebody else, but you had where the stores are getting a certain percentage of what the developers are making, and there's arguments over who gets what of the cut. So it's going to be interesting to see if this store goes through, how Xbox, how Microsoft handles that, and are developers even willing to make one store, or do they want to say, look, we're going to have our own store, we're going to keep doing it the way we're doing it? Again, it goes back to a creature of habit. When we buy mobile games, what do? We go to Google Play, we go to the Apple Store. So that's another hurdle I think they're going to face, is getting people to say, hey, let's go to Xbox to do this. So we've got to get a lot of people on board for this to work.
Yeah, I wonder how they, to your point, how they're going to implement this. Is it going to be, obviously an app-based version? So when you click on the Google Play app, you go to the Google Play Store. Will you just have a Xbox-looking logo that opens you up to access to all of these things, and they just call it a mobile gaming platform? Because again, you can't default to a mobile, to like a Microsoft Xbox gaming app, because that's all they offer. The actual store that has games, that has apps, that has all, your payment systems, everything in Google is the Google Play thing. So presumably Microsoft will just have a new version of the Xbox logo in an app that you'll download and then have access to all of these things. I think it'll be fairly easy for developers, especially ones that already have games and titles, to, work out contracts to be on this. And I presume that Microsoft started laying the groundwork for this kind of stuff when they rejiggered their Microsoft Store policies and payouts. We wrote about that during the Epic thing, when Microsoft was saying, hey, we're going to start giving developers more money, and we're going to start offering them better tools and access to Azure to build their kind of things on, and a whole advertising platform. So I feel like they're basically going to port all that stuff into this app as soon as they can, especially if they're planning on having this out next year. That's my guess, but it does play into my headline, which is the CMA has provisionally concludes that Activision Blizzard deal will not harm competition through investigations. And that is the end of it, folks. We will have Activision Blizzard under Microsoft. Calling it now. We are done. This investigation is over with. Microsoft won. Pop your champagne. Let's go play some games. Sorry, but fortunately, that's not how it works in the real world. This is an amendment to their investigation, which they will conclude, I believe, April 26th. But at least it's a good sign. What they're saying is, based on further investigation, this is what we're finding. Now, we know that the CMA kind of had some dour news about 3 weeks ago saying, hey, we're not liking what we're seeing here. Since then, Microsoft has done a bunch of juggling and offered everybody, basically anybody who asked them, hey, knock, knock, who are you? Nobody. You want a deal? You want a 10-year deal for Call of Duty? You could have it. That's what Microsoft has been doing. They've been hanging it out 10-year deals for Call of Duty, like Skittles, to any platform that is willing to have it, as a sign of good faith. And I believe that it seems to be working. The CMA offered a press release, I believe, a day ago or today, it might have been, which cited a significant amount of new evidence in response to its original provisional findings, appears to have shifted the merger in their opinion. And so, according to the chairman of the independent investigation panel, Martin Coleman. So, again, like we said, it seems to be, the boat seems to be tipping now ever so slightly in Microsoft's favor. We know we had a headline about Sony saying that Microsoft killed Redfall for their platform as a way to kind of a last-ditch effort. Microsoft has responded saying, we don't know about any of the stuff that Sony's saying. So it seems like Sony's getting desperate. Microsoft is a leg up so far. We still have the UK, the EU to get through, the FTC as well. So, and we still have a bunch of other countries that have their own regulators that we haven't talked about. But those just seem to be the big three that we're very concerned about, because those could really hold up the deal. What are your thoughts?
good move. Microsoft needed the shot in the arm, I think, and I'm hoping that, like you mentioned, this is the tipping point to them going ahead and getting the rest of the. I'm sorry, but it kind of brings back thoughts of American Idol, the rest of the yes votes, if you will, that they need to win this. And let's move on. I mean, June is getting close. We're, call it 3 months, folks. It's 3/24. Less than 3 months. June is coming. So I don't know that they're still going to hit their target date of having this completed, but I think this is maybe the start of the rocking the boat that gets everybody to say, okay, I'm tired of fighting. We're tired of dealing. Okay, just let them do it. Pop some champagne, as you said. Let's play some games.
Hopefully. With that being said, this brings us to the end of our podcast. We want to thank you guys again for joining us on a relatively short one this week, but we hopefully covered enough information for you guys to take to your friends at your next dinner party and regale them with the information about Microsoft. You can find me at Mindhead1 on Twitter. You can find me on our website if you want to ask questions or anything like that. Where can people find you?
David PHA1978 on Twitter, or you can search me, David Allen, on our website. Drop me an email.
Yeah. And with that being said, go out and ask your chatbot some funny information or some funny questions, some new prompts. Drop them in our comments. We'd love to, use any of those in our next podcast when we talk about this kind of stuff. Or go to our Twitter as well, and you can leave some responses there. We are all in this AI journey together now. See you guys later.
Take care, guys.